Welcome to the next in our set of video series for Guns 101. I'm Paul Lathrop with the Polite Society podcast. Joining me this time around is, as usual, Amanda Suffolcool from Eye on the Target Radio. Also on the bottom left, as you're looking at it, Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Today we're talking with the Tactical Professor Claude Werner. He's tacticalprofessor.com. Claude, we wanted to get started on this first video with talking gun safety and safe storage. I'm just going to toss it to you. What do you got to say about those topics?
People in the community know that I've spent probably the past 5 years doing a lot of research on what I call negative outcomes. And one of those negative outcomes of gun ownership is having people that you don't want to have gain access to your firearm. And so that's one of the things that I like to focus on at home, and especially when we're out. One of the things that's changed a lot over the past, 10 years is we have a number of states now that are called constitutional carry.
Mm-hmm.
So in those states, someone who recently purchased a gun during this period of large purchases could simply buy a gun and start carrying it. There are no permit, no licensing issues, whatever. And I'm all for that. However, I want people who have that experience, as well as people who are in the rest of the states like us, that have to go through some kind of permitting or licensing process, to understand that when you leave your house in your car, you still need to have some way of storing the gun other than just putting it in the console, the glove box, or something of that nature. Or worst being between the seat and the console or in the door pocket. And especially to not leave that gun in the car overnight outside your house. That's a really serious problem. There are an awful lot of guns that are stolen out of cars. And what I try to get people to do is to think ahead of time about how to handle that situation. Plus, there are areas that we go, like courthouses, the post office, and so forth, where we're not authorized to carry weapons in there. So if you're carrying a gun, that means that you have to have some way of securing it while you're in that facility. So a lot of people talk about how to store guns in the home, and those methods go from very simple. My colleague John Holshin said, if you do nothing other than buy a steel toolbox and a lock to put your gun in when it's not on your person, that's at least a start. So that's a very simple solution, and it's workable for a lot of people, up to, very elaborate facilities with safes and gun rooms and so forth and so on. I think those are all great ideas. What we don't talk a lot about is once we leave the house, what do we do then? And my opinion is that simply putting the gun in a console or a glove box is not an adequate method of storing the gun in the car when we have to leave the car temporarily to go into some kind of facility. So there are numerous small boxes that we can get for, I purchased one for $10 at Academy Sports. It's big enough for a Micro 9 or an LCP or a snub, something of that nature. And what they do is they fasten via a cable to your car, and then they have either a key or a combination lock. And when the person leaves their car, they can simply put that gun, hopefully as discreetly as possible, into the box, secure the box. If the car has a trunk, that's where I really think the best place to put it is, because then it requires a thief to actually break the trunk open, which isn't all that easy. It can be done, but not that easy. But at any rate, somehow the box is secured to the vehicle, which adds an extra layer of protection to prevent somebody from getting access to the gun by stealing it. Or
Claude, can I interrupt? Because I got a question about that. I mean,
Sure, absolutely.
I think that that's a good point about storing it in a box, but storing it in the trunk. But for women, one of the things that we've been told is that thieves watch the action. So when you get out of your car and you walk around to your trunk, I mean, so many people lose all of their stuff at Christmas time because they get out of their car, go around to the trunk, and lock something in the trunk. And then the thieves say, you've got something of value that you just put in there. So what do you, how do you dance that dance?
I think that's true, and that's a good consideration. Um, and if a person thinks that's an issue, generally speaking, then maybe they secure it inside the passenger compartment of the vehicle. The cables very easily fit around the seat supports
Right.
in the passenger compartment. And if you go to people, or you go to places where you're concerned that people might be watching you, that's certainly a possible alternative to prevent being seen. Because you're
Okay.
absolutely right that people do watch parking
Watch
lots.
your behavior. One of the things that we tell our students is, if for some reason, like you're carrying and then you get up to the door and there's a sign that says your gun's not welcome and you have to go back to your car, my advice is always go back to the car, take your gun, put it where you need to put it, lock it up, whatever, move your car to another parking spot in the parking lot, because a thief is just going to be watching you for the standardized actions, which is get in your car, get out of your car, go back to your car, and then go back to the store. So
Sure,
if
and
you
I
have
think
to
that's
do
a
that,
great tactic.
just
I
move
think
it.
that's a really good way of doing it, is secure the gun and then move the car around. Because you're absolutely right. They're looking for normal patterns, and as soon as you come back and then leave the car, drive off in the car,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you're out of sight and out of mind at that point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so more car storage. What other advice do you have for people? Because we've done a variety of these gun safety 101s, and not one other instructor has talked about how you safely keep it in a car. So this is a great video.
Well, to continue on, I think that for people that have long guns, and not necessarily for the I'm going to fight my way to my rifle in the car, which for the most part I personally think is sort of a ridiculous philosophy, but that's just me. But for instance, I was at my gun club, and there was a lady there who was a trap shooter, and her car had a compartment in the back. She had an SUV that was a hidden compartment built by the factory, that she could break down her double barrel shotgun and put it in there when she went to her club. And she showed this to me, and I was like, what a great idea. So I think that there are things that we can do to facilitate making sure that our guns don't get um, into unauthorized hands. The key thing about this is we need to think about that ahead of time. When you realize that you have to run out to do some errands and the post office is along the way, and you put the key in the ignition, that's not the time to start thinking about how am I going to secure my gun in the car. We need to think about it ahead of time. It's like a lot of things that we do with firearms. We need to think about them sometimes just a little bit. Maybe I'll go to, oh, gee, I'm in Academy Sports anyway. And I just say that because it was so cheap, $10. I hadn't even planned on buying one. And I started to walk out the door, and I saw this thing. I was like, a gun cabinet. Can't really call it a safe, but some kind of a storage system for $10. I will buy that right now, and it's turned out to be a really good system. I'll also say this, that I bought one with a key, because for me, I found that using the key, keeping that key on my keychain all the time, and then using that key was a quicker way of me securing and retrieving the gun than a combination lock. A lot of
Okay.
people like the idea of a combination lock, but I used a combination lock for many years. And after I bought one with the key, I said, this is the way to go for me. I just thought it was faster. So
Okay.
that's
Great.
what I liked.
So folks, we are going to tell you that there are more videos. There's going to be more videos with Claude Werner, the Tactical Professor, and check him out at his website, tacticalprofessor.com. And we're going to be back. But look at these videos. Look at all of them, because there's so much information from so many great instructors. And maybe next time we'll even let Charlie talk. We'll be back right after this.